Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 15. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Good to be back with you guys for this Friday show. Dave, it is the preseason finale between the Steelers and the Carolina Panthers. Roster cuts just a couple days away. The deadline, August 31st. So this last game might not mean much to starters and to maybe the casual fan, but for some of those guys trying to make that last push for a roster spot in battle, it means the world to them.
You and I are locks, right? Are we locks?
Are we? Check with Danny Smith.
Yeah, lean-in time, right, as Mike Tomlin likes to call it. My latest 53-man roster prediction just went up on the site a little while ago. We'll cover that here in a little bit. But, a lot of as is usually the case when you get into the final week of these, you're scratching your head about, 3, 4, 5 positions maybe that could go various different ways. And I think Mike Tomlin kind of set up a few interesting battles. I think we covered most of them the other day after his press conference the other day. But there is obviously some spots to be decided here.
Yeah, a lot of them, and we'll talk about them throughout today's show. And so, I have a terrible take today that talks about some of the guys that have cemented and won the roster spots in this finale. Whether you talk about Stephon Logan, who Mike Tomlin referenced a couple days ago, whether you talk about Rosie Nix, who blocked that punt back in, I think, 2015 it was, to cement his roster spot, compel this team to keep 2 fullbacks, which no one thought that they would do going into training camp, and then Josh Dobbs in 2018, his strong play that led to Landry Jones' release, which I believe Mike Tomlin referenced earlier today on Steelers.com. So this game, somebody somewhere will win their job and cement their spot on this team because what they do tonight against Carolina, and maybe someone loses their spot because of what they do or don't do tonight versus the Panthers.
Right. For sure. And I think we're in tune for a surprise or two here. I'm definitely rooting for a couple guys like Matthew Sexton. I kind of rooting for him to possibly pull off a Stephon Logan type deal here as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch this play out. And I mean, you got a lot of nice storylines heading into this game, right? You got Dwayne Haskins making the start. The last time he started was against the Panthers in December of late last season, and threw 2 interceptions in that game. Now that game was, I believe, in Washington and not in Carolina. But that's first and foremost. I mean, that really gives you something to look at here going into this last game.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave, let's kind of reset things. As a top, you want to talk about some news that came in this morning that's pretty pertinent, not to tonight, but to week 1, and just kind of maybe some of the mystery involving the lack of practice time from defensive lineman Stephon Tuitt. According to the PPG's Gerry Dulac, he's saying that Tuitt is dealing with, quote, an undisclosed injury. He says the Steelers are being respectful of Tuitt, obviously losing his brother in the offseason, but goes on to say, quote, however, he has been held out of practice mostly because he's dealing with an undisclosed injury that could continue to bother him for a while. So no details on what that injury is. We've kind of talked about that, some of the references to Trey Norwood made by, I think, Cam Hayward in the past. So that might shed a little more light in terms of what's happening with Stephon Tuitt.
Yeah, at least, I mean, this is, I think, that kind of the first time that we've actually heard a report that states that Tuitt is dealing with an injury. Now, it obviously would it would probably make a little bit of sense at this point of the process here. Early in training camp, yeah, you could say him dealing with the death of his brother and all like that. Probably played a role in him not getting up to fully conditioned at the time, and that was. That made sense there. But when you get this late in the process here and he still hasn't practiced, it certainly makes you wonder. I know we've gotten a few emails about that. We've kind of said, look, we just don't know because there's nothing out there. Well, now, according to a report by Dulac he is dealing with something. What he's dealing with, we do not know. And I think what Keith Butler said the other day is certainly something maybe to look forward to see if it indeed does happen. And that's the fact that Keith Butler, in so many words, kind of stated that he thinks that Tuitt might be able to start practicing here soon. He says, oh, yeah, it's not a problem here. He's here all the time. He's always in the meetings and stuff like that. When is he coming back? When we need him to come back, Butler said. Does he need to come back and get in shape and stuff like that? Sure he does, but we're not concerned about it right now. Hopefully next week we'll get him back. We'll see. We'll see what happens. If Tuitt, this close to the look, you have the thing going on with Watt, but at least Watt's been out there, right, for the most part, doing a lot more than Tuitt. There has been, I believe you did spot Tuitt doing some stuff on the side during training camp, if I'm not mistaken, though, right? At least early on in the process?
Sure, there were days where Tuitt was going through some individual work, would go through a pass rush drill in the bags or something like that. So most days he wasn't, but there were days where he was working in some capacity.
All right, so at least he's been working in some capacity. Maybe he strained something in that process. We don't know. So I think the time to sound the alarm with him would be as if we get into next week and there's reports of Tuitt still not practicing. Then you really start wondering, well, what's going to happen for come week one there, and will the Steelers have to keep an extra defensive lineman, yada, yada, that kind of thing. Now, is there some sort of list that Tuitt can go on? Well, I'd have to look back at, non-football injury lists, but and see maybe what qualifies there. But even so, you would think that Tuitt would have to be on the 53-man roster first, right? Because they're just not going to allow people to just get shuffled off to a non-football injury list as a means of kind of circumventing the 53. If you get my get my drift there. So regardless, you would expect Tuitt to be at least on the initial 53, and then does he need some time on at least with short-term IR? It's 3 weeks or whatnot now. So who knows? Maybe the Steelers have to go that way with things. And if they do, then obviously, once again, Tuitt would have to be on the initial 53, then get moved to IR, and then, someone replace him on the 53-man roster. So once again, could we be dealing with a situation here where the Steelers wind up technically, having 7 defensive linemen with one of them on IR? I suppose it all boils down to what happens with Tuitt. Now, didn't you keep a 7th one on your latest roster prediction, or no?
I didn't. I was close. Bugs was number 54 for me. But as you mentioned, I think earlier in the week, if they keep 7 initially, that could tell you that obviously maybe Tuitt is in danger of missing week 1.
Right. It's definitely something at this point that once we get into early next week, when they resume practicing, it's going to be interesting to watch. If Tuitt resumes practicing, then everything hopefully will be okay. If he doesn't, then I think that's where you start wondering, all right, is there going to be some sort of needed manipulation with this 53-man roster come week 1?
Right. And speaking of your 53-man roster, Dave, well, let me put it to you this way. Do you want to talk about the Panthers game and the battles first, or talk about your roster prediction that went up this morning on Steelers Depot? How do you want to kind of attack getting ready for tonight?
Yeah, I guess we can roll through my 53 real quick, because we already hit on a lot of it when we went through yours the other day there, so it won't take too terribly long here, I don't think, here overall. Yeah.
Let's just focus on the differences and some of the changes you made since your last prediction, and you can kind of tell me which ones you changed, because I don't exactly remember what your previous one to this looked like. But quarterback's still the same here with Ben, Rudolph, and Haskins. Not a lot worth talking about there in terms of who's going to make it. At running back, you're keeping Benny Snell. So your 4 true running backs are Harris, Snell, McFarland, Ballage, and Derek Watt, of course, the fullback. But why still Snell on the 53?
It's one of those, let's see what happens Friday night. It's a to be determined at this point. Look, we've talked about it. Benny Snell, obviously, you would think needs to show up on Friday night against the Panthers. There, you get into the question: is there some redundancy here? Is with Najee Harris being your set to be your bell cow, and with Snell and Ballage kind of being redundant, and could you open up a spot there on the roster? I mean, or could you trade Benny Snell and get maybe a 6th or 7th round pick there? I mean, we'll definitely see. I think all those are possibilities there. For now, though, I wanted to kind of watch and see how this thing played out with Benny Snell Friday night. And on top of there, I'm not sure I'm in love with anybody else to put in that extra roster spot right now. I mean, you make a good argument that you could keep a 10th offensive lineman, but I mean, you're still only going to dress probably 8 of those guys for games anyway. There, so where could you maybe use the extra roster spot and still dress that player? If it went that route, and you just look at the back end of this 53-man roster, and it's unless you kept maybe an extra outside linebacker or an offensive lineman, and heck, what's going on with the cornerback situation right now? I'm not so convinced that we're still not done with a player or two outside of this organization being added to this roster. But really, long story short, on the running back position, it's a wait and see, and don't be surprised if it's only 3 in my final prediction.
Sure. Do you think Snell has any actual trade value?
When you have a guy, though, that really has looked okay, at least so far when he's played, and he does have special teams value. If he didn't have kind of the special teams value that he has, I would say, man, what the heck are you going to get there? But, I mean, he is a good short yardage back. He is a back that I think has at least shown, I mean, when given the opportunity, that he gets stronger as days goes on, and as games go on, and can kind of be that wear down back for teams if they have a little bit smaller back. Maybe that's one of their starters there, and then on top of it, he is a guy that you can dress and put on all 4 special teams units if you needed to. So I'm going to say, he does have trade value, albeit not much, probably a 7th round pick or even a conditional or something like that. But I would say, he has some value here.
Yeah, I just have a hard time seeing any team offering anything for Snell. I mean, he gets better when the game goes on, but is any team going to give him 15 carries to get better as the game goes on? Sony Michel just got dealt for a 5 and a 6, and he's had a much better career, and I think that's much more talent and upside than Snell. So maybe a conditional 7th, as you mentioned, but I think that value there is really minimal. Yeah,
it's minimal if he gets dealt at all. It's just one of those things. I mean, you look around the NFL and the fungibility of the position and the skill set that Snell has. Look, he can pass protect, right?
He can.
I mean, he's other than just not being what's the word? I mean, really
good,
extravagant. I mean, he does have a little bit of value to him. Look, I mean, you can state. I mean, Ballage is on his 4th team, right?
Right. I mean, I don't think Ballage has much trade value either. I think he's been better and is the better player than Benny Snell.
Okay. I would go the other way. I think Snell right now, until I say, obviously waiting to see what happens Friday night, but I think Benny Snell is the better player of the two.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, he'll get the start tonight, it sounds like, Benny Snell. Wide receivers still the same 5: Juju, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, James Washington, and Ray McCloud. How tempted were you?
Very.
I think you're in the Matthew Sexton fan club, actively saying I'm rooting for Sexton but keeping McCloud. So yeah, go ahead.
I just think Sexton, is sexier. Can I go there?
You went there. So.
I think he's the more dynamic player, and I God forbid you get in a situation where you need that kid to play on a lot of meaningful offensive snaps and all, but I think he's the more all-around dynamic player. And yes, with all due respect, McCloud did give a spark to the return game last year, something we have not seen since I think before you were born, pretty much. But I think you can go one more louder there. I think you can take it from 10 to 11.
He's got to return a kick first before I start putting him on 53, and he has not done that yet.
Sure, but he has been exciting to watch, and I think, God forbid, once again, if you had to use him on offense, I think he gives you, and unfortunately we haven't seen that. Here's my hope for him Friday night. Do you need to play guys like Juju and Deontay and Claypool and really Washington? Do you need to play those guys Friday night?
Juju and Johnson won't play. I could see them giving Claypool a couple of snaps since he didn't play in the tune-up game. I think Washington will play a decent amount of snaps, but Juju and Deontay should not play and probably will not play.
All right, even if Washington plays, he's going to be the Z, right?
Yes,
for the most part. Who's going to be your slot? Why not put him, Matthew Sexton, out there and let him get a lot of playing time in the slot and get some targets in there, something we really haven't seen. And then, by the way, you're returning kicks and punts all night as well. That's something we've seen, the punts, right, but not the kickoffs.
Right.
But he did return. In fact, I think if you go back to his college career, it was the other way around.
He didn't do punts in college.
Right. He returned like 2 punts and then the rest like 18 kickoffs or something. So put him out there. Let him have at it. Let him see if he can pull a Stephon Logan. And I think Mike Tomlin kind of hit it on that. I mean, you admit, though, if he takes one to the house, he's probably going to be on the roster, right?
There's a good chance of that, but he's got to do it first. That's a tall task. That's like saying Josh Dobbs throws for 500 yards tonight, then he's got a good chance to make the roster. But yeah, actually, in Sexton's been in the kick return line in camp, so he's been getting reps at it, just the opportunity to do it. I mean, there are so few kickoffs and kick returns with touchbacks and things like that. I don't think he actually even formally returned a punt in college, because the one punt he has a 50-yard punt return touchdown listed in his stat line, but that was a block punt he had against Central Connecticut that he blocked and then picked up and housed. So I don't know if he actually formally did it, but he's doing it in Pittsburgh and he's doing a good job of it.
All right, and once again, it's going to be interesting to watch. In no way, shape, or form would you bet the house that McLeod will be on this 53-man roster, right?
No, but I think his odds are stronger than what you think they are.
Okay, well, I did. I mean, the way, I don't know, you probably didn't read it, but I think in so many words that's the way I wrote it up there. I said odds are perhaps against that, and being McLeod or Sexton making it over McLeod. But
what do you think the odds are, percentage odds? Because you also say McLeod might not be too safe heading into the finale. So I mean, how strong are his odds of making it?
The odds are strongly against him. I mean,
what is the number? Put the number on.
I mean, what's the odds of a player returning a kick for a touchdown in a game? That's the odds.
Okay, so it's like 95% McLeod's going to make it?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that sounds like pretty good odds to me then.
I mean, that's the odds still are perhaps against Sexton making it, though. That's the point that I was trying to make, and that's the point I've made all along. I mean, that's why McLeod
that's close to bet house status, though. Yes, I mean 95% plus. I mean,
but I asked you, would you bet the house? Not me. I would probably bet the house because I'm a gambler. Would you bet the house?
Okay, well, you say, but I sure would not bet the house that McLeod sticks. So you're not betting on McLeod sticking.
I would be more likely to than you would.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you think his odds are smaller than what I do. I think he's got really good odds to stick. McLeod does.
No, I said I would be more apt to bet the house that McLeod would stick.
Oh, okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean,
then you would.
Okay, then I guess maybe I'm I don't know. I guess we're in agreement that Sexton would have to do something remarkable.
Reading comprehension is your friend, my friend. All right, next one.
Let's see, tight end here: Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, and Zach Gentry. So you're switching with me here, and you're going Gentry over Kevin Raider.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore Gentry going in that game earlier the other night, and it's hard to ignore that Gentry has improved his blocking. I would like to see him run block, a little bit more, and I think we're going to get a chance to see that, right? Friday night against the Panthers. So for now. And I want to see Gentry play a little bit more on special teams and make an impact there. That's something I don't think we've really even, haven't noticed yet. I still think that Raider, if it was me, knowing that especially if I was going to, I guess it comes down to who do you going to need to dress. If you're not going to need to dress a third tight end on game day for special teams purposes, then I'd be more apt to keep Gentry.
Right.
But if I was going to keep, if I thought that I was going to have to dress my third tight end on game day, then I would keep Raider, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think Raiders the better blocker, still the better special teamer, but the tea leaves and the signs are pointing towards them keeping Zach Gentry because he has shown improvement, and I guess there is more again theoretical upside with Gentry than there is Kevin Raider.
Hey, here's the thing so far on offense of the guys that are talking about, boy, kind of question marks about. Obviously, Benny Snell Jr. at this point, question mark about his roster status. To some degree, Ray McLeod, a question about his status. The third tight end, Gentry or Raider. I mean, you can make good arguments either way there. I will admit, though, that Gentry has really impressed me throughout the preseason here. I didn't think we'd kind of see the kind of stuff that we've seen out of him. So
yeah. I just want to see more as a receiver inside stadiums. Like, he never makes a play inside a stadium.
Are you playing Freiermuth? I mean, you're not going to play Ebron tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm playing Freiermuth. He needs reps. He missed the first game. Like, this is a rookie tight end. He needs reps.
All right, so but you're not playing Ebron, right?
Yeah, not playing Ebron.
All right, so and I mean, how much of Marcus Baugh do you need to see in this game? So you're probably going to see a little bit of Freiermuth, I would think, at the beginning stages of this, and then a lot of probably Gentry and Raider, right?
Right. Plus, it's good to play Freiermuth, so Haskins has some good talent to work with to, I think, make that evaluation a little bit more fair and easier for Haskins.
So, I mean, hopefully Gentry is used in the passing game some. I mean, we got a pretty good feeling of who Raider is at this point, even though he's the undrafted free agent and Gentry's the draft pick. At least Gentry has shown a little bit more ceiling to him now, I think, throughout this process, right?
Yeah, I think Raiders maxed out. Gentry, again, has more, like I said, theoretical upside. How much of that will actually get realized, who knows? Probably not much of it. But, yeah, I guess he's the higher ceiling pick, Gentry over Raider.
All right, offensive lineman. I mean, I don't know what you thought about the tape on Rashad Coward versus B.J. Finney. I went back through it all these last couple of days. I don't see what the team likes in Coward right now that makes me want him. That would make me want to keep him over a more established guy like B.J. Finney. I think just B.J. Finney is the better reserve guard option at this point than Coward, and I think there'd be no issue getting Coward to the practice squad if that's the way that you wanted to go. So, I mean, I understand Mike Tomlin praising the you-know-what out of Coward early in this process, but the tape, at least to me, the tape has not matched that so far during the preseason. Coward's on the ground a lot. I mean, I don't have a lot of trust in him in the pulling process with him, whereas I do with Finney. Look, Finney's not going to the Pro Bowl here, but to me, if it comes down to a choice between those two, that's where I'm at in this. All that being said, I will still not be shocked if this team adds some sort of veteran center on the cheap to maybe make both of these guys potentially expendable here. But nothing on the tape that I have seen has shown me to have confidence in keeping Coward. Now, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I get that. In my training camp grades, I gave Coward a C-. I gave Hassenauer and Finney a B-. So I think, like I said before, Coward, more upside, I think he's more talented than Finney and Hassenauer in terms of just raw potential and ability, but he is not NFL ready. He's not even close to being ready to play in a game right now. And he is, I think, a year 4 guy. Now, granted, he got a late switch to O-line. He was a defensive lineman in college, I think early in his NFL career. But he's just, it hasn't come all together yet for Rashad Coward.
And the whole Joe Hague thing, we would agree that probably Dan Moore has outplayed Joe Hague so far, right?
Yes.
So but that said, there's nothing to save cap wise, really, with Joe Hague and the whole. We've already addressed the whole compensatory angle. You're not cutting a guy because you think you might get a 6th-round compensatory pick here. You're cutting them because you have better options there, and I'm not sure they have a better option than Joe Hague unless they think Chaz Green could be that guy.
Which they should not, for sure. I think the question is Dan Moore comfortable enough at right tackle? If they feel like he's improved and is comfortable enough there to play there in a game, then they would, have Moore at least get the hat over Joe Hague in terms of on game day action. And so that's going to be the thing. It'll be interesting to see if Moore plays right tackle, left tackle. Maybe he plays both tonight. At core 4, I think we'll start at left tackle. So maybe Moore will get some right tackle snaps, but I think that's where they want to see if he's ready to work there in regular season action.
I mean, you're putting Trey Turner out there on the field for at least for 15, 20 snaps Friday night, right?
Yeah, and I think Tomlin said the starting O-line will play. I don't think he named specifically if it will be all the 5 guys, but it should be. There's no reason not to.
All right, so that's where I'm at there. The tape won't let me keep Coward. So defensive lineman, nothing's changed there. We've already addressed what may, could Tuitt's status end up playing a role in here. It's hard to tell right now, but it's still the same 6 there I have with Cameron Hayward, Tuitt, Tyson Alualu, Chris Wormley, Carlos Davis, and Isaiah Loudermilk.
Yeah, and then inside linebacker the same as well with Schobert, Bush, Spillane, Buddy Johnson, and Marcus Allen. Did we get to the roster cuts the other day?
I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was Tuesday, I guess. Okay, just you mentioned Kevin Mundage and it jogged my memory here. So yeah, those guys are the same. Outside linebacker the same for as well. Watt, Highsmith, Ingram, and Marsh. What do Jameer Jones, Quincy Roche have to do to work their way on the roster here?
I think it's down to Jameer Jones, quite honestly. Jameer Jones has played a lot more snaps than Quincy Roche. Jameer Jones has logged the most time on both sides. I think Jameer Jones has played a lot more special teams snaps, and I think Jameer Jones has had the bigger impact on special teams as well too. And then you go back to kind of the quote that Keith Butler had a couple of press conferences ago about how essentially. Roche hasn't really played on it. Roche, in my opinion, based on things Keith Butler said, would have really had to stuck out huge on special teams to get a spot. And I don't think he's done that so far. So to me, if there was anybody, any of these outside linebackers that were going to overtake Cassius Marsh, to me, it would be Jameer Jones.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think both guys have definitely flashed in camp. I think Jones has showed more on special teams. So from that aspect, I think he's more ready to go than a Quincy Roche would be. So I'm with you there, but I'm also with you in that I just kept Marshall for both of those guys and put Jones and Roche on the practice squad.
Right. Now, if Jones comes out and, just blows it out, especially on special teams Friday night, I don't know, man. I'm not married to Cassius Marsh and never have been. It's just the fact that just the whole special teams value, and
right.
People get tired of us talking about it, but that's how some guys make rosters. That's how the, Anthony Chicklos and Tyler Matakaviches all make the roster.
Sure, absolutely. Now, corner gets really interesting here because you did yours here post D'Antoine Brooks waived injured. My roster prediction came out the day before, the day of that got announced. So you're in a better place than me in terms of projecting and predicting this thing. So the 6 you have 6 corners here: Hayden, Sutton, Pierre, Millett, Lane, and Shakir Brown. And explain why those 6, and obviously especially why Lane, Millett, and Brown the final 3.
Lane, look, it's a process of what do you have at this point, I think. Here we were went into this thing as Antoine, went into the offseason thinking Antoine Brooks is a junior. Or Antoine Brooks Jr. is a nickel, is a safety, and then out he comes as a nickel. So then we move him into that category there, and now he's gone. What do you have left at this point? And, thankfully for the team, Justin Lane has come on the last couple of weeks. I don't think I've come close to tossing Lane outside. I don't think I ever have. But he has come on the last couple of weeks. He got a little bit of praise this past week, which makes me think he's in. Arthur Millett, I'm going to assume that, last man standing, and I'm going to assume that ankle's going to be okay. So that's why he's in there. Obviously, with Antoine Brooks Jr. going to IR, that seemingly opens up a spot there. It very well could go to someone not on this team right now. I think you had an article yesterday about potential guys that the Steelers could maybe look at either trading for or getting off the waiver wire here this next week or so. That's very, very plausible at this point. Obviously, the team has come out and said that Trey Norwood is going to get a shot at nickel in the slot there Friday night against the Panthers. To me, he would have to play lights out. To win that job at this point. However, you kind of go by what Keith Butler has said. Even though you and I seem to, I think we're still in agreement with this. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the best possible nickel was Pierre on the outside and Cameron Sutton in the slot there. It just feels like the comments that they're making, Keith Butler specifically, that they don't want to go that route.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are massively overthinking this, and Keith Butler's like pleading for. You know, I think we joked about this on Wednesday. Why did this team not just re-sign Mike Hilton? Because they really just are like, Butler's like, we got to get a guy who can blitz and play the run, and we want to be able to have this flexibility and all that. And,
Sounds
and
like Mike Hilton, doesn't it?
But yeah, just re-sign Mike Hilton. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I think the no-brainer decision is to move Sutton to the slot and Pierre on the outside. Those are your best guys. But based on the way Keith Butler spoke, like he was very adamant, you know, that they're begging and pleading and hoping and dying to find some sort of physical slot corner. And that makes me think that they're going to find one outside the organization, because clearly they don't like the guys or the job of the guys that have been doing who are already on this roster.
I mean, apologies to Arthur Millett, but what I've seen in coverage so far, you know, and really has, I guess he's flashed a little bit, a couple plays against the run, but, you know, nothing that directly comes to mind. But in coverage, man, and right for the time being, I have Shakir Brown in that spot, but it's almost a default of, you know, do I put insert name here,
right,
or do I put a name in there? You know,
yeah.
So I think it could go either way with outside the organization. You know, you brought up MJ Stewart. I think, I mean, that could be a legitimate option. You know, would he get traded to the Steelers though? You know, or is he on the outside looking in, possibly going to get cut there? I mean, this team doesn't. You know, one thing I think you've continued to reiterate throughout, you know, these podcasts and on Twitter, and I think even in some articles, is the Steelers really don't have any draft capital, at least not next year, to work with when it comes to later round picks. So. You know, unless you do a player for player or you know, which is something we just don't see this team do a lot of, it's going to be hard to come up with any, you know, unless a team's willing to take something, you know, from 2023, you know, to get a player, you know, such as you mentioned. But I mean, Colbert's going to be working, and I have a feeling there. So for now, I put Shakir Brown in there, but you know, I only wish he would have had a better showing in that preseason game last week. I think he has shown up a little bit on special teams so far. He would obviously kind of be a guy, and look, he was one of your highest priority undrafted free agents too, right? So the team thought highly of him, and there was a lot of people after the draft thinking, you know, boy, they got to steal in Shakir Brown and get him as an undrafted free agent. We just haven't seen that yet, especially on the preseason tape, and I'm not so sure you saw it during training camp practices.
No, I haven't. He definitely looked good in the Hall of Fame game with the job he did on special teams, but that was kind of the high point, and since then it's been pretty quiet, and he played poorly against Detroit. So, yeah, let's go through your safeties here just to finish up the DBs. Fitzpatrick, Edmonds, Killebrew, and Trey Norwood. I think, man, even if they bring another DB, I think Norwood makes it. They really seem to like Trey Norwood.
I wasn't on that side of the fence on my last prediction, but I am now. I mean, especially now, you think, you know, all the praise he's gotten this last week about how versatile he is and how he's going to get the, you know, they're not afraid to put too much on him, and he's going to play. You know, the only question is who starts in the slot, you know, Friday night.
Yeah.
And do you want to get Norwood? Do you want to get Norwood some snaps at safety, at free safety, and then move him on into the slot after Millett's done playing, assuming Millett does play?
That's probably what happens, yeah, because your starting safeties in this one will be Norwood and Killebrew, because Edmonds and Minka aren't going to play. And so, yeah, I imagine Millett will start in the slot, and then with Pierre and Lane on the outside, and then Norwood will come in second team slot.
All right, and then maybe Shakir Brown gets some late snaps in the slot?
Probably, yeah.
All right.
That's my guess of it.
Maybe Shakir Brown will show up on special teams and block a punt.
Yeah, you never know.
or something there. Obviously, I'm not married to him.
Sure.
Man, once again, I'll ask you this question here, or let's go ahead and go through the rest of it. The other change that I have is obviously Christian Koontz. I'm taking the bait. The bait's out there. I'm taking it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even bait. It's an open competition. Tomlin's declared it as such. He was talking on Steelers.com today and said that Koontz went to the team this offseason or this summer and said, "Can I play outside linebacker?" And Tomlin said, "Absolutely not. You're a long snapper. This is a real battle, and so we're going to have you there." And so, it could go either way, I guess, at this point.
They sure. I mean, the fact that he survived that last cut that we talked about on the last show there. I'm taking the bait. I'm calling for the change here, and you have noted that over the last couple of years, Cameron Canaday hasn't been perfect. Remember that kind of stuff got him out of Arizona too. Some bad snaps off.
Yeah, it was one that sailed over the holder's head, and Arians cut him the next day.
Right. So this guy is not Greg Warren, iron, Teflon, Teflon proof. I mean, he's had some instances. So anyway, I took a leap of faith there that maybe they like Christian Koontz better and maybe his ability to get down the field. Who would have thought we would have been talking about this when training camp opened?
Yeah. A lot of specialist battles tonight. Harvin and Barry and Koontz versus Canaday. Could Barry get traded? Like, this is what I live for, Dave. Special teams action. This is my dream.
All right. So with that, how shocked are you at anything on my 53?
Nothing shocked. It just I get why you put Shakir Brown there because who else are you going to put? But I just can't see this guy making that 53 right now. And I just can't put a guy who I don't think will make the 53 on my roster, even though it feels like it's more of a placeholder because I don't know who it's going to be or where it's going to be in terms of slot corner, free safety, et cetera. But they're going to bring in a new DB. There's going to be some guy in the secondary that's not on this roster now. They'll be part of that week 1 roster.
And that's where I'm kind of going with the question
right.
here is I mean, you're pretty much lock, stock, and barrel. I think with me that they're going to add a DB from the outside, maybe 2.
Right, but the question is will it be that physical slot corner they're talking about? Is it going to be a backup free safety, someone who could ideally do both? That would be great, but it's hard to find those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, I put a name there instead of hello, my name is.
Mm-hmm. That's why I went with MJ Stewart because I think he's if this team is that hell bent on that slot corner physical type of guy, it's MJ Stewart in terms of available options. And I think could you trade for him? You could, but I think he could get cut because he's got a hamstring injury. He hasn't practiced in 2 weeks, but he's a physical corner. He showed that on his North Carolina tape. He's got experience. He's a second-round pick. The Steelers love their pedigree. He's only 25 years old. He had 2 interceptions in 3 games against Pittsburgh last season, including one in the wild card game. So they know him well. I think that one makes a lot of sense.
Is he the single best one that you've found by scanning depth charts or whatnot?
It was a limited list of best ones, and he's still, in terms of how good is he? I don't think he's that good, but in terms of what they're looking for, the physical slot corner, I mean, the options were I had MJ Stewart, I had Darryl Roberts, and then there was you. I think you were third on that list.
Oh, Lord.
There weren't a lot of options here in terms of realistic guys who could get cut or very much on the bubble who are physical slot cornerbacks in the league.
My 3-cone just wouldn't.
You're still running it. You turn it into a 4-cone. I don't know how you turn the 3-cone into a 4-cone.
I turn it into a 6-cone.
Yeah.
Just like my 6-pack abs that I have. Ooh. And I tried to go through the same process of going through depth charts and thinking, no, and I couldn't come up with hardly any list, and I wouldn't have even picked out MJ Stewart. So kudos to you for that, especially if that one comes through. So
right. I did ask you about Bryce Callahan, who's reportedly could be on the block in Denver, but it seems like contractually just too expensive to take on that contract.
He's the one that I said that you'd have to. What is he? $6 million?
Yeah, it's like $6 million.
I mean, you could get it down to what did I tweet back at you? 2 point something. If you took all that money he's scheduled to make and then turn it into a signing bonus, all but 1.075, and then added the voidable years for the max, so you can stretch out. Even then, with the roster bonuses and all, I think it still comes about 2 point something million cap charge there. So, and then what would you need to give up to get a guy like that too? Yeah,
that's a good question. You have to give up something because he's a decent player, but he is an experienced slot corner with decent ball skills, decent physicality, who's reportedly kind of sort of on the trade block.
Could they cut my boy Vincent over there? My LSU kid?
Harry Vincent? Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been impressive. It sounds like, I obviously don't follow that too closely, but he's had a good camp.
I mean, I wonder if that's that's a possibility there. That's somebody that I think that they like. It'd be interesting to see. But I think we both agree, whether it's a safety or a nickel, somebody not on this roster is going to be on this roster here fairly soon, I have a feeling.
I agree. I just don't get why they're so, like, we have to get this physical linebacker playing in the slot thing. Like, Cam Sutton obviously is not the hitter that Mike Hilton is and not nearly the blitzer, but Sutton's fine in the slot. And this is a coverage league. Like, I get, again, you played in AFC North with Baltimore and Cleveland, but those teams are going to keep you in base a lot anyway. So it's not like you're going to be in nickel against the run a ton either. So it's just a weird obsession. What'd
you think about Keith Butler's does Keith Butler know what personnel groupings he faces sometimes?
That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know if he does that intentionally or if he's like just playing dumb. I don't know. Yeah.
Or like me, sometimes the words are in my head, but they come out of my mouth wrong,
Yeah. Butler was asked, how much dime defense you're going to play this year, and he's basically said they're not going to play much dime, but he also said they only play dime against 4 receiver sets, which is just not even close to being true. They play dime in 3rd and 6 and 7+, and that can be it's most commonly against 11 personnel. So it's hard. How much stock do you take into an answer that is wrong? But he's also the coach, so I don't know how to interpret that.
We talked about the possibility of at least one outside player being added. What is the possibility of 2 guys not currently on the roster ending up on the 53-man roster?
I mean, I guess it's possible. I don't know how common that is over time, but each year is different. And so let's earmark a DB for one of those spots. Where would the other spot be?
I think offensive line, center.
Offensive line, yeah.
I really think this team should look at a cheap veteran center. And there's probably going to be 1 or 2 cut. I don't know who they are, but I think there's a possibility of that happening here. All right. And practice squad, I mean, it's kind of the leftover bunch there with me. You and I will fight Cody White versus Anthony Johnson to the finish here. I put Dobbs on there. I'm not convinced that Dobbs would accept a practice squad spot. Obviously, have Rashard Coward now on my practice squad list. I added Trey Edmonds in this one because he has, he is the backup fullback, so to speak, and you probably want to have something like that on this roster. And I have obviously Roche and Jameer Jones on here as well too.
Yeah, so let's talk about tonight's game, Dave, in terms of position battles, guys still fighting for jobs and opportunity, because certainly there are still jobs on the line here. So whenever you think about the top battles tonight, where does your head go in this Panthers game?
Before we do, let me tell you where my head's at with the line and all like that too, and why you should get to MyBookie and probably bet this tonight. Winning season returns at MyBookie.ag, and it's time to get in on the action. First-time players can get started by doubling your first deposit, giving you the firepower to add excitement to the games you love. College football odds boost, NFL lock of the season, and over $500,000 in contest prizes. Live on site to make the winning season your best ever with MyBookie. With a historic 18-week schedule offering more action than ever before, you need a sportsbook casino that's reliable, and you won't find a better place to play than MyBookie. I know you're going to bet this season, so do the smart thing. Sign up with MyBookie.ag and use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible to get your first ever deposit matched dollar for dollar. That's extra money credited to your account instantly just for using promo code TERRIBLE and making your first deposit today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. To redeem this limited time bonus, all you have to do is make your first secure deposit with MyBookie.ag, and you'll instantly receive double your money into your account. Doubling your money has never been easier. If you want to take advantage of this unbelievable deal, head to MyBookie today and start making some serious cash. With your doubled up funds, there are no limits to what you can bet on MyBookie, and they have all your favorite sports and leagues to wager on to satisfy your sporting betting needs. So don't wait. Get to MyBookie.ag right now and use promo code TERRIBLE to redeem your double deposit bonus today. That's promo code TERRIBLE to get double your first secure deposit today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right. previewing tonight's game here, I do have, and a lot of these guys we've already kind of talked about in here, but I've got a nice list, I think, of 8 players to watch closely tonight. And running through that list of names, Dwayne Haskins, for obvious reasons, he's going to get the start here Friday night against the Panthers. As you and I already talked, man, I'd play him well into the third quarter of this game. I wouldn't mess around. I wanted to get a good look at him. Benny Snell Jr., after missing the first 3 preseason games, is a guy I think really interested to see how that pans out for him, and not only on offense but potentially special teams as well too. So I think it's not a mistake that he's going to get to start and probably be showcased in this game. Trey Norwood, for all the reasons that we've talked about, this is a guy that's going to play some in the nickel slot. At some point, probably after Arthur Millett leaves the game. And not only that, I want to see him play a little bit more free safety in this game as well, too, because it looks like he is indeed going to stick on this roster. We talked about Zach Gentry a lot the last couple really shows here. Interested to see, we see he can pass protect. I want to see him run block a little bit more. I want to see him do something on special teams. Special teams is another aspect of where Jameer Jones, the next guy on my list, I'll be watching out for specifically Friday night against the Panthers. We talked about Shakir Brown just a minute ago. I think he's another one kind of worth paying attention to, especially coming off of that bad defensive showing that he had in last week's game. And the last 2 guys on my list, both special teamers, so to speak, Christian Koontz, the long snapper, it certainly sounds like it, he's got a chance to wrestle this thing away from Cameron Canaday Friday night. So as long, I'll be watching, make sure he doesn't have any bad snaps. I'll be watching specifically on punts, how quickly is he downfield and can he get in on a tackle that way or not? And then Matthew Sexton. I think it comes down to, can Matthew Sexton house one? And so those are my 8 guys. Would you like to comment on any of them, or would you like to add to the list?
No, it's definitely a good list. I'll just kind of run through them here in order in which you present them. We know that Ben's not going to play. We know Mason Rudolph's not going to play. Haskins won't get to start and should play at least the first half, maybe more. Is there anything Haskins can do tonight to be the number 2 quarterback on this team and pass Mason Rudolph?
Man, I think he'd have to play lights out, man.
Me too.
I think he just had to play lights out. My gut tells me that he won't, for whatever that's worth. So, I think Carolina's going to probably game plan a little bit more in this one defensively. I think we're going to see some of their starters. Haskins has played a lot of vanilla stuff, a lot of instantly identifiable cover 3, cover 2 kind of stuff here. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how much of that he sees, or if he sees any blitzing. He really hasn't seen any blitzing, throughout this thing. So my hope, look, I want him to play. I want him to play a lot. And I want him to play well. But my gut tells me it might end up being a kind of a meh performance from him. And if it's just a meh performance from him, I don't think he's going to overtake Rudolph for the job there. But I do want to see him stretch the football down the field more, and just not make any mistakes. Period.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point about the Panthers defense. This is going to be a good test for the Steelers offensive line, because that Panthers D-line's talented, assuming that guys like Brian Burns and Derek Brown and others play. For whatever it's worth, I should at least mention it. Both Ryan Clark and John Clayton believe that Haskins either will be the backup or has a good chance to be the number 2, for whatever that is worth.
Well, as I stated on the show the other day, I feel that if that's the end result, then just trade Rudolph and get what you can get for him.
Yeah. I think for Haskins, it's possible, but it would take like a Josh Dobbs 2018 perfect performance to do that, in my opinion.
Right, and well, I would play him the whole game, to be quite honest with you. I don't think they will, but that's what I want to see him put in as many uncomfortable situations as possible. Period. And even against furniture movers, with a minute 15 left in the game, those kind of things. I want to see him get as much work as possible in as many situations, because quite honestly, this might be the last time that we see Dwayne Haskins take a snap in a Steelers uniform until next summer.
Right. It'd be a good thing if it was, because that means Ben was healthy and presumably played well.
Right. If Haskins has to play any at this point this season, things have probably gone sideways quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. So besides the quarterback battle, what other top battles are you watching tonight? Obviously, the names in your list are generally linked in some sort of battle. Where are the top, this guy versus this guy, or, maybe a third guy that you're really looking to see who separates themselves tonight?
I think Coward versus Finney is one that going to be interesting to see who takes what snaps with what group. Now, they both seem to be interchangeable at the guard position, at least from what we've seen the snaps that they take. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Could it be both stick? I mean, I suppose it could, but I kind of view that as a battle right now. What other position groups?
I mean, those guys should be just coming in second team together, so it might be hard to see who's ahead of the other, because Coward should be at left guard and Finney at right guard and Hassenauer, I presume, at center.
Sure. So which one of them plays better, and do you switch them in game? Maybe that's a clue. Do they alternate series and go from different sides to see which one's which one's more versatile? Versatile at both positions. I think we know the answer to that question. At least in my mind right now, it's still it's Finney right now. But I think that's worth paying attention to tonight. What else?
Gentry and Raider again, talked about that battle. I mean, I think it's still close. I don't know though. It's maybe more about Gentry not losing the job than it is Raider doing something to jump Gentry.
Okay, at the start of the preseason, you wouldn't have said that though, right?
Right. No, I wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have either.
I flipped.
Gentry looked especially good in pass protection. He looked good. I'm trying to think what else. Obviously, the long snapper. I mean, I'm going to be watching every long snapper snap tonight. Punts and place kicks and all like that as well too. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really jumps out. I mean, I guess Arthur Millett, the time that he gets in there, needs to be paid close attention to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just an average corner. Like I think I would keep him as a backup because he's versatile and he's fine. But man, it's like a worse version of Bryce McCain if you're playing this guy serious snaps.
What about where was I going? Are you playing Joe Schobert at all in this game?
I think he needs some reps. Yeah, I mean, I normally wouldn't, but I think he needs to get some reps. So I'm not playing him a lot, but I'm probably playing him 2-3 series.
All right. If you're playing him, are you throwing Ingram and Highsmith out there with him?
No. I obviously I get the value in that, but Schobert can still learn and get the calls even without those guys being around him. So I don't think it's necessary.
Man, I've seen enough of Ingram and Highsmith so far. I hope they don't play, to be honest with you. So.
Mm-hmm. Highsmith, by the way, the first Steeler in our camp recap to ever earn an A+ grade.
Who's
first
that?
One I've ever given. Alex Highsmith, first one to ever get an A+ grade since we've been doing grades in 2017. So that's how good his camp been. And by the way, Christian Koontz, my heart fluttered the other day. We got a great comment from somebody who apparently employed Christian Koontz over the last couple of years at some local Pittsburgh company and said that Koontz was a great worker and he's rooting for him. So that was a fun comment.
Obviously, Loudermilk interested to watch his snaps in this game. He's going to get a lot of work there. Is anybody, guys that probably aren't going to make the 53, but maybe a practice squad spot is on the line that you're interested in?
That's a good question. The receiver battle, your Cody Whites versus Anthony Johnson versus Rico Bussey. What guys can kind of separate themselves where they're going to keep at least two receivers on the practice squad. Could they keep a third? That's possible. How about one battle for the 53 we haven't touched on yet? Isaiah Buggs and Carlos Davis. I mean, those guys have been fighting wire to wire, and I still have Davis on my 53, and you do as well, but it's still very much a battle. I think both guys have played well. It's weird though, Dave, because Tomlin had said, basically like whoever improves the weakness the most is going to get the spot. So Buggs as a pass rusher, Davis against the run. But that opportunity for those guys have been very limited. Buggs only has, I think, 8 snaps as a sub-package defensive lineman this preseason, and Davis only has, I think, 8 snaps as a base nose tackle for this preseason. So they haven't really got much of an opportunity to show their weakness as much as maybe I would like.
All right, so both those guys ought to play plenty of snaps Friday night.
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
I think Buggs has. I think Davis has outplayed Buggs overall, but I think Buggs has surprised me a little bit with his play, if that makes sense.
Is there anything? What does Buggs have to do? Like get a sack tonight, I guess, and show those pass rush chops to win this job?
Yeah, I think he's got to really make the bigger impact in the pass rush game.
Yeah, it's been a really close battle. I think both guys have been impressive, but I'm still going Davis.
I am too. All right, anybody else you're looking forward to watching tonight? I think my 8 names is a pretty good list there overall, and then obviously some of the fringe guys we just talked about there.
Yeah, and then punter battle as well. Harvin and Barry punts and holds and all that, and hopefully again look at the punt tonight. They only did that once last game. I imagine there'll be more punts tonight, so that battle is ongoing.
All right, what's your terrible take about today?
It is about actually just reviewing the history of some of the guys who have made the team in that 4th preseason game. The Stephon Logans, the Rosie Nixes, the Josh Dobbs, and why this game means a lot and why I'm still mad at the NFL for cutting the preseason game from the schedule.
Yeah, at least we got them back, and at least the Steelers had 4 of them. So there is that. So all right, what else do we have to get to now?
I think that's just about everything, unless there's anything else you want to review or recap from the Panthers game, or we're previewing that, or anything else on the site. If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
What's going to happen tonight? How do you see tonight's game going, just in general?
Like in terms of the score, or just the game flow,
everything.
I don't know. I mean, generally they're kind of sloppier. Last preseason game, who's going to win? I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe Carolina because they're playing more starters in Pittsburgh, but I don't know how long Carolina's playing their starters for. So I'll say the Panthers win this one 20-13, but who knows?
The line at my bookie right now is the Panthers at -3.5. I have been all over the Steelers plus the points to or laying the points. Basically the Steelers to cover throughout this preseason. I'm going the other way this time. I think the smart bet here is the Panthers to cover that 3.5 in this game. I expect the Panthers to win by 10. To be honest with you.
Do we know if they're playing starters offensively too? I haven't even paid much attention in terms
Christian
of what guys
McCaffrey, I don't think is going to play. That's one name for sure that I think they've commented that's been in the wire that probably not going to play. I don't know too much about anybody else, but I think the general consensus from their beat writers is that Carolina's treating this as a tune-up game,
right?
Except for McCaffrey.
Okay, gotcha. So we should see most of their guys. So. Yeah, I mean, that would give, I guess, Carolina the edge on paper.
All right, ready for some eater emails?
Yeah, let's do it, Dave.
All right, let's see here. Let me pull them up here. This one from Bryce. Hey, guys, it's Bryce. Looking forward to the preseason finale, but I have a little bit of a bone to pick with both of you today, and my comment for here it goes. Alex, I'm not sure why you are surprised by Haskins' comments about the Washington coaching staff not being as prepared as the Steelers. In your article, you wrote that Haskins' words were pretty surprising, that it would be unfair to assume that Washington didn't prepare him. Why is that unfair, though? Washington has been basically a trash organization for years with a widely known terrible owner and a toxic culture. Why is it unfair to think that they didn't do a good enough job of preparing a young rookie quarterback? Organizations don't get like Washington did all those years just by having bad players. It's also bad ownership, bad coaching, and bad culture. We definitely didn't do too much hand-wringing about players' behavior, like tweets, etc., and not enough examining the behavior of so-called leaders like Jay Gruden, Dan Snyder, Dan Campbell, and so forth. I'm more worried about the latter and not the former. So he takes issue. I sided with you there. I don't think you can take everything a player says at face value. Especially, look, I mean, the last season with Ron Rivera
right
there. Ron Rivera is a pretty button-up dude as far as I can tell. Now, obviously, none of us are inside those walls there. But, I mean, I think there's a lot of hyperbole in what, personally, in what Haskins said. And I think that's where you were going to.
Yeah, it just caught me off guard because sure, I get, Washington's been kind of a mess, but just because, Dan Snyder sucks as an owner doesn't mean like the OC or the quarterback coach doesn't give a scouting report or something like that. So, I mean, it was just surprising to see that. And then, as you said, having a better coaching staff, a better team last year with Ron Rivera running the show, you think things would improve. So, I was just a little surprised by that. But yeah, there's definitely been it's been a quiet war of words between Washington and Haskins. Those guys have been taking shots at each other like all offseason, basically. Rivera made some comments about Haskins' work ethic. Haskins has made several comments about, being happy in Pittsburgh and getting treated better here than he has in other places. So they've been subtly taking some pot shots at each other.
Now, do the Steelers coaches maybe, handle them differently as far as getting more input on things maybe that he likes than maybe what the Washington coaches did and stuff like that? It's possible there, but I think there's some missing truth somewhere in some things that Haskins have said.
Yeah, like I said, it's really hard to separate fact from fiction. But even the bad NFL organizations, it's still the NFL. Like there's still these $1 billion teams, and you would think that they have their act together. So just because it's the NFL, and like in high school, you'll get scouting reports. So but who knows?
Look, tonight's a big night for Dwayne Haskins. Make no mistake about it, right? Tonight is a huge. This is what everybody has wanted this thing to, I think, to get to. Is tonight. For those that say, well, Haskins hasn't been given a chance throughout this thing, and having to play third and come in with he's going. Not only is he starting, but to hear Tomlin talk, it's going to be against some quality players on the other side here. So this is what I think everybody has wanted this thing to get to sort of ahead here. And I think it's great. I think it makes for a very, very intriguing preseason finale for the Steelers overall here. And how he does is how Haskins plays is going to kind of set the narrative, I think, for not only the next week, but in the next calendar year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be the last impression he'll leave on Steeler fans for maybe the entire season. So it means a lot.
What if he comes out and completes 50% of his passes, throws 2 INTs, and doesn't look good? Is there any chance Haskins does not make this? We've talked about the other side of it, right? We've talked about can Haskins jump Mason Rudolph? What is it worth? Is it okay to even discuss the other side of this?
You're going to get a lot of hate mail for that, Dave. I think the question to that would be, if we assume that performance from Haskins, how does Dobbs look? Does Dobbs go in and light it up? Or does he struggle as well? So, yeah, can you sit there and say that Haskins is locked into a roster spot right now? I suppose not, but I think it would take a really poor performance just because, I think they at least want to have some options for next year and want to at least have some consideration for future guys if this is going to be Ben's final season.
On the flip side, if he comes out, throws for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, then the talk for quite a while will be, well, he deserves to be number 2, and maybe he's the guy that can take over for Ben next year. So.
Yeah, certainly. So we'll see.
All right, Jesse. Let's see. Anthony writes in, been following you all since the start of last season, have been loving all the content you guys put out, and I truly appreciate all the hard work and time you guys put in. I have an idea about the nickel package, he says, the Steelers could utilize. Having Hayden and Pierre on the outside and keep Sutton at the slot. When the Steelers are in base, keep Hayden and Pierre on the outside. He says, I think that Pierre is better than Brooks Jr. and Millett. So you would have 3 of your best cornerbacks in the game without having to have Sutton switch from outside to inside and vice versa. I think Anthony's a little bit confused here because in base you're only going to have two corners out there, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. And Sutton, Sutton can switch so easily. That's not a concern about him having to make the switch between playing outside corner and slot corner. That's such a smart guy. So that's not the concern there. The concern for Pittsburgh is Sutton physical enough and as good of a blitzer to play in that slot the way that they prefer.
Let's see. He goes on to write, also in today's game, the majority of the time, the defense is in nickel or dime, so you would have those three, Hayden, Pierre, and Sutton, on the field at the same time anyways. Just want to get your thoughts on that option. Keep up the great work you guys do at SD. Anthony, I think you're kind of confusing base. The base defense is two corners and two safeties on the field, along with your four outside linebackers and obviously your three defensive linemen across the front there. So I think that's where you might be a little bit confused. Alex and I have been kind of stumping for, I guess, that when they do go to nickel, that right now, at least throughout this whole process, it seems like the best option is to have Sutton kick inside and for Pierre to come in the game and play opposite Hayden. That's right. Where we have been. It's as we already said earlier in the podcast, man, it sure feels like the Steelers are trying to do everything not to do that for some reason.
For some reason, it's the part that frustrates me.
Jesse Hernandez writes in, hey guys, Jesse from Florida again. First thing I want to ask is all this talk about lack of physicality in the nickel. Why is it that we don't give Pierre a chance to play in the slot? He's very physical and has shown that in limited snaps. Why do you see us going a lot of 12 personnel, but just putting Ebron out wide so he can take advantage of the safety and linebacker coverages? Thank you guys. Can't wait for Buffalo. My optimism has definitely came back on me these past few seasons, but I really like our chances at an upset with this new offense. Look, the thing about putting Ebron on the field in 12 personnel along with Freiermuth is somebody's not going to be on the field. So somebody like Claypool, Deontay Johnson, or Juju Smith-Schuster are coming off the field if you're going to put an extra tight end. Who do you want to pull off the field in those situations? Now, I do think that we might see an uptick a little bit in 12 personnel, but I don't think it's going to be over the top increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but whenever they do go at 12, could you flex Ebron out? Sure. I think you need to take advantage of his frame and size and athleticism and hide some of the inline blocking woes, although, again, there's been some improvement there. But sure, I think you need to be creative with that and use him as a mismatch.
My biggest fear is seeing 12 personnel with Ebron attached.
Mm-hmm. Or at least running behind when Ebron's attached, running behind him.
Right. And then if you're not going to run behind him attached, then you're telling the other team which way you're going.
Yeah. Right.
To me, I think there's been some scuttlebutt on social media, maybe even the radio, that there's a potential that Ebron might get, or people think that if there's a guy that the Steelers could trade, it'd be Eric Ebron. I mean, I don't get that, especially after restructuring his contract now. And what could you get for him anyway if that thing's set to void? Anyway, after the year at this point. Why not just, and you don't save all that much cap space with him overall. So at this point, I think because of the restructure and all like that, you're kind of married to Ebron for this final season here.
Yeah, and he definitely has value to this team, and obviously he has his warts as well. But I'm not looking to push him away as you're trying to collect talent and make a run at this thing. In terms of guys who could get dealt, I think Josh Dobbs, Jordan Berry, could one of those defensive linemen get dealt? And this is a crazy thought here, so my tinfoil hat's on super tight. But could I don't think it'll happen. Let me preface it with that, but. Could they trade a Chris Wormley? I would not cut Chris Wormley, but could you trade him if you wanted to keep Isaiah Buggs and keep that D-line talent? And at least I know they just gave him the extension, but the Ravens just traded Sean Wade yesterday, who they just drafted 4 months ago. So I don't know if you got a really good offer for Chris Wormley for like a 5th-round pick, which is what you traded him for in the first place. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I think they like what Wormley. I would be shocked. Sure. I would be absolutely shocked if they trade Wormley. I think Snell might have some value. I think whatever punter you go with, the other one might have some value there. I'm trying to think what else tradable.
Does Dobbs have value or no?
I don't. I think if you trade if they trade any of those guys, it's going to be Rudolph, I think.
Okay.
But even then, I don't think it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think props props to Kevin Colbert if he can boomerang Dobbs again. I mean, trade him away and back he comes, and trade him away, back he comes. I would be shocked if Dobbs got, had any value that way. But I don't know. You got teams like Atlanta over there now that struggling even to find a second quarterback, right?
Right. Yeah, I think Dobbs would be like a conditional 7th, like the bare minimum value. But I think maybe you could get something just because he's mobile and he's smart. He's going to be a good guy in the locker room. I could see it, but obviously you're not going to get the 5th round for him you got, 2 years ago from Jacksonville.
Here's where I am, and I think you've been on this, been with me on this as well. They're going to a trade's going to happen. They're going to get a 6th or a 7th out by the time week 1 rolls around here. I really think there's a good chance in that. Did we hit? Yeah, we got Jesse's question there. Let me see if I can find another one here. 13 personnel in the red zone from Steeler Hawk 47. I was wondering what you guys thought about using 13 personnel in the red zone, not as a heavy run formation, but as a nightmare matchup formation. He says Eric Ebron has his 6'4", 245, Pat Freiermuth 6'5", 260. He likes catching TDs. Zach Gentry 6'8", 265. Then he goes on to list Chase Claypool 6'4", 238. Najee Harris 6'2", 229. I have to think Matt Canada can scheme out of some nasty scenarios with that group. Theoretically would allow Ben to place the ball where no one but his guys can get it. I mean, I think you'll see some 13 personnel at some point this season, and maybe in a much better light than what we've seen the 13 personnel in previous seasons, which has meant an offensive lineman serving as the third tight end. I see where you're going there, but I don't, will we see it in the red zone maybe occasionally? I think it's a possibility. I just don't think it's going to be predominant.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's an interesting package. There's definitely some talent there, and I think the way that the Reader laid things out is interesting. But, are you going to see it a lot? No. But could you see it some, and could it be effective? Yeah, I think it could be on both counts.
Right. And look, I already called my shot about week 3 or week 4 about that kind of that Yankee concept out of 13 and play action. I think you're going to see that. So, yeah, I'm interested to see them run some of it. I just don't think we'll see maybe – I think we'll see a little bit of it in a red zone, a play or two here as the season goes on. I just don't think it's going to be heavy. Rick Williams writes in, "Hi, David Alex, long-time listener since the beginning and first-time emailer." All right, so we got a long-time first-time here in Rick, Alex. I am a huge fan of the podcast, but for me at least, I do them in 30 or 40-minute chunks. I've been wondering who would win a foot race between Anthony McFarland and the ex-Steeler Speedy Petey Gonzalez. To me, they seem very similar, but McFarland was bigger. Also, who do you see being a surprise keep at the final cutdown? Anyhow, keep up the great work, guys. Bless Petey's heart. We knew he wasn't going to make it, but he sure was. His college tape sure was fun to look at. I would take, because I think Petey ran to 100 and 200 meters, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was a track guy.
So I would take Petey over Anthony McFarland in a foot race, I guess.
Did he say Petey Gonzalez or did he say Petey Guerrero?
He said Petey Gonzalez. Speedy Petey Gonzalez.
I'm gonna be very literal here and a jerk and say the quarterback Pete Gonzalez, who wore number 7 before Ben McFarland, would beat him in a race. But no, I don't know. I guess I would go Guerrero because he's the track guy. Right.
He's going off the cartoon character here.
Right.
Which was probably before your time.
Yeah, I grew up. Today, kids don't even have cartoons in general. No one watches cartoons today, but I was at least part of that era.
Speedy Gonzalez was a character on, I think it was Bugs Bunny, wasn't he? He was Warner Brothers and all
I'm
like
familiar.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Surprise cutdown too. A surprise keep. I guess it was already on my 53. It'd probably be a Shakir Brown, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's a good question.
Who would be somebody that would be a surprise?
I mean, it'd be like a Jalen Samuels, but I just can't. Maybe I'm biased, but I just can't see them keep a Jalen Samuels.
Anybody else that maybe you have on your practice squad that ends up making it? That you would give a chance.
Mondo. I don't know. I'm not feeling a name here.
All right. I will go with Shakir Brown as my choice there. I think that's got all of them, Alex. I think we ran through the list there. So with that,
last question here for you, Dave. Today is Friday. Before we'll have our next podcast Monday. Will TJ Watt have a new contract by next Monday's show?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to say it takes on into next week past Monday.
Okay. I'm gonna call my shot here and say, as we're recording the podcast Monday morning, it gets announced.
Okay. I just have a feeling that it'll take a little bit on into the week a little bit there. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I thought the perfect timing maybe for this would have been a couple of weeks ago there. That obviously didn't happen. But I think, too, when you look at the CBA and how the CBA is worded when it comes to roster bonuses and how those can be treated as signing bonuses after the final preseason game, I think that's a very good reason why we're at where we're at right now here. And next time you need to write this down. Next time we have to have Joel Corey on the show, on the podcast, need to get further clarification of why it's better for teams to this close to the season to give money as a roster bonus in lieu of a signing bonus, especially when a roster bonus can be treated as a signing bonus. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's a great point.
Now, I think it's related to things that teams can and can't come after as far as voidable stuff and, stuff that they can come after the fact. I think it's related mostly to that. But, man, I have scoured some of the legalese in the CPA and all like that. And Joel gave me kind of a very brief kind of answer on that, and it's hard to do when your conversations direct message like that. He said forfeiture can only occur in that particular year with a roster bonus, so the agent will prefer a little of the proration as possible in signing bonus.
Okay.
So there's some forfeiture language probably there in contracts there, I think. But I've always kind of wondered too, when you get this close to the start of the season. Look, we saw it last year with you see it almost every year when the Steelers do these deals late in the offseason. We saw it with Cameron Hayward. We saw it with Stephon Tuitt back when he got his deal done. Why even if the roster bonus ends up getting treated as a signing bonus, then why even distinguish one over the other? You know what I'm saying? Why not just give all the roster bonuses a signing bonus and be done with it and call it a signing bonus there? So there is a reason why there is a roster bonus, and obviously roster bonuses usually aren't fully guaranteed, especially when it comes to the Steelers. But we need to make sure we get that clarified with Joel Corey the next time of why roster versus signing bonus. And I think that the language in that is reason why in the CBA, why the Watt, part of the reason why the Watt deal's not done yet. And I'm willing to bet that when the Watt deal does get done, that there's around a $5 million roster bonus in addition to, let's say, I don't know, $40 to $45 million signing bonus in this deal as well, too. I still think that when this deal gets done, it's going to total out at $160.089 million. Is that specific enough for you?
Very specific, yeah.
And you think it'll get done sometime, maybe Monday, maybe while we're doing the podcast?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just calling my shot here, but okay. I mean, the report was shortly after the Panthers game. It'll get done. What does that mean? Who knows? But we'll see.
All right, we will see indeed. We'll be back on Monday to recap the Steelers preseason finale against the Panthers. When did the cuts take place?
Tuesday, the 31st by 4 p.m. Right. And the Steelers generally wait until like the 11th hour to make their cuts.
All right, so those obviously probably won't be in, so we'll be able to discuss our final roster predictions and all like that as well too there. So, all right, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, Please hit SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Tons of content coming on the site tonight covering this game. So please go to SteelersDepot.com and take part in in-game chats that we have for first and second half that Ross McCorkle does. And obviously we will have you all covered on the post-game stuff as well too. So in the meantime, until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.